I am Jacob Gabel.
I'm Jacob Wurtz.
And this is the Untapped Podcast.
Whoa! Very new intro there. What's up, man? It's been a couple weeks.
Dude, it has been. A good holiday, July 4th, our wonderful country, celebrating that.
Yeah. There was a lot of comments on my Merry Monday that I did for 4th of July.
I love when they fall into the trap of the engagement, bro. I literally commented on that. I was like, I haven't texted you, and you were like, oh, you're in a fighting mood.
Dude, it was so dumb. Like, I posted it, and then Peyton was like, have you seen your post? I was like, no, honestly, no. And she was like, there's a lot of comments on it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I go and look, I'm like, God, these people are so stupid.
Well, it's
like,
weird because all your post said was like, let's unite as one country.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Roe v. Wade.
They're like, Roe v. Wade, our abortion rights are gone. It's like, what? It's like what are we talking about right now? Like, this has nothing to do with this post whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. People see American flag and they're like, oh, yeah, you're racist.
Granted, there might have, at least a couple of them were bots because you went in their profiles 100%. They look so fake. And
they had 46 followers.
Yeah, and they're following 3,000 or something like that. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's not really real.
No, but yeah. I wasn't tweaking about it at all. I was just like, yeah, interaction, engagement, like, sick. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming in now.
Thanks for the views.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to introduce a third guest on the podcast.
Yes. We kind of unplanned.
Yep.
We just kind of threw this together real quick.
Pretty much this week,
yes.
I would say. That's kind of what we planned it as. And it is my wonderful brother, Mitchell Gabel. He's a cybersecurity analyst, background in cybersecurity with schooling, that type of stuff. So we wanted to bring him on to talk some current events, different safety when it comes to the internet. So Mitch, you can.
What's up, Mitch?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good, man. Good. It's good to have you on again. This was just thrown together, but this is exciting.
Real quick. Yeah. In town for a little bit of time. And ready to do it.
So tell listeners a little bit about yourself, real quick.
Yeah. I just graduated from St. Cloud State this spring. Majored in cybersecurity, in formal education. I guess a lot of people actually don't take the formal education route in cybersecurity, but that's what I did. Coming up on about 4 years experience in IT, about 1 year specifically experience in cybersecurity. And I kind of think they brought me on here with the idea of focusing more on the technological side of the issues our government pushes and faces. I guess in specific terms, you have privacy, you have governmental overreach regarding encryption, regarding the NSA, regarding a lot of the three-letter agencies out there. And really just happy to talk about it and just see where this conversation leads.
Wait, so you mean the three-letter agencies that are supposed to be on our side protecting us, but aren't actually using their duties for that? Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Yep, that's how it goes.
So why the route to cybersecurity? What kind of caught your eye 4 years ago to get into IT and then get the formal education that you were talking about?
So our dad, Jacob and I's dad, grew up. He did IT back in I'm dating him here, back in the 90s. On the more
Steve. Oh my God.
It's funny because my dad too. Literally in software design, like
on the more technical side. Back in the 90s, but now he's in the more, I guess, management side. But really, in summer of 2017, I built my first PC, and that kind of really led toward. That's not necessarily cybersecurity related, right? But it's more of a, infatuation with hardware and electronics, and that kind of led me down the road of getting involved in IT, and it just led to a couple of internships in that space. I was lucky enough in college, at least, to know what I want to do. Now, who knows? That might change. I'm a year in, and I might find another passion. But,
right. And I feel like that's a pretty, if you know that's what you want to do, I feel like that's a pretty direct route. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So especially, with cyber, I mean, it depends on school to school, but a lot of the time, cybersecurity people can get really pigeonholed into one thing. You only are focusing on this, and that's one thing I really wanted to avoid, which is why I'm more focused on the issues that I guess are related to not necessarily cybersecurity, but more of a technological side that plays into your daily life. Because unfortunately, as we're recording this, everything is technologically connected. We have a microphone, we have video. This will be posted on social media. That's another issue that stems into that technological side.
So what would you say are some of the biggest threats as far as cybersecurity? Not necessarily countries or nations or stuff like that, but just in general, you kind of mentioned social media, and on a very simple podcast that we have, there's 4 major pieces of equipment right here: camera, microphone, laptop, TV. So just what would you say are like some of the biggest threats as far as that goes?
In terms of U.S. based stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say specifically, we were actually talking about this before we started recording this, is a lot of governmental overreach. And I think we kind of will go down the road of that during this podcast, because a lot of this stems from, a lot of the issues we face today stem from government overreach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, more recent one, Roe v. Wade. Government shouldn't be involved in that in the first place.
Sure.
That's not necessarily related to technology, but you could say that for many of the problems we have today. Government overreach into stuff it shouldn't be touching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Citizens' privacy, your text messages, your emails, your phone calls with your elderly grandmother, your
right.
XXX and X. All that plays into governmental overreach, and that wanting to know more about you to try and predict something about you. And you see that with a lot of companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, where they collect terabytes and terabytes of data on one person, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll use that to not necessarily do malicious things. They can, but they'll point it toward things that make you spend more money maybe at that company.
Sure.
You say, I heard rum chata and root beer sounds really good.
Yeah,
I want to know.
you and I had said that.
I'm using that as an example. That sounds really good as a drink. You don't search it. You don't Google it.
Mm-hmm.
All you do is speak about it in the privacy of your car, your home, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, you have an ad for rum chata.
I was going to say, we're all about to have ads for that. I mean, literally.
The next day, you have whatever it may be. And the scary thing is a lot people know it exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear your parents talk about it all the time. Oh my gosh, I was scrolling through Facebook today, and your dad's doing it. They showed me an ad for this lawnmower I want, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, did you search it? No. And you just, it's now become a part of your daily life.
Yeah, right.
How is that necessarily an okay thing?
We shouldn't be okay with it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like people
Yeah.
just kind of accept it, but don't actually understand what's happening.
You don't realize how
Yes.
much of a step that is into predicting your
absolutely.
behaviors.
Sure.
It's
There's even been times where, like, legitimately, I've just thought about something, and then you get ads catered to that. I don't even understand how that's possible. You know?
It's all behavioral. The thing is the more data that's collected about you, the better picture whatever algorithm this company is using can build of you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
It says, okay, they visited Nordstrom Rack and bought 3 pairs of jeans. Well, they might be going to mow the lawn because they need to buy more jeans, or they bought jeans and a pair of new boots.
Yeah.
Oh, what are they going to do? And that's correlating all that data. And I've always said this about AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence isn't completely artificial by itself. It's still based on neural networks where you have humans essentially creating data paths based on variables, right? So you say, like I just said, this person showed up in this location at this time, and they did this. What does this mean? And essentially it keeps building upon this network. Now, I'm not smart enough to say I understand these algorithms, but it pulls all this data in. The more data, the better the picture.
Yeah.
How, like, why? Why has all that started? Why has that happened?
I mean, you can lead to one thing, the green money.
Yeah,
there's a couple of big drivers, and I think that's where this podcast will lead, is a couple of real general areas of why this has happened. Money, power and control kind of go together. That's a similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of turns to the government side of it, where you're talking about LavaBit before this. LavaBit, they still exist as a company, actually, but it was back in 2013 when Edward Snowden blew the whistle on the NSA leaks. He was actually using LavaBit. It was an encrypted email service. So basically, your email, so whatever is on your phone, wherever it is, you use Gmail, blah, 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 iCloud. You would send that email. It would be encrypted by a specific private key, and it could not be unencrypted by anyone else unless they had that specific key, which would be that recipient. And essentially,
just like a certain code or password or something like that.
Okay. And essentially, and we won't. I mean, it's not a podcast for super technical stuff, but essentially, and I couldn't describe it either. But essentially, the U.S. government came to the owner of LavaBit and basically told him, you need to install these listening devices on your servers, on your data center that's supporting this service, because we have figured out a couple of these keys, and if we don't, we will force you to through legal means. And it's quite the story where the owner was forced to, he was served with a court order to show up in a federal courtroom in Virginia, which was over 1,000 miles away from his home, in 2 days. So he had 2 days to just out of the blue, go to federal court
on his own dime.
Yep, yep. So essentially, it was the government wanting to know everything because they couldn't see what these people were sending. They didn't know what it was.
And hopefully,
but
get him in trouble by making him drive 1,000 miles. So hopefully, he wouldn't do it.
Right.
And then leads to more problems and more consequences with that too.
Essentially, it was the attempt of wanting to gain more control because they did not know.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of services, a lot of governmental organizations. I mean, globally, you have the EU, the European Union, where they have a couple of documents, I guess in a more generalized format. I don't want to overstate it, but a lot of the documents were attempting to remove some encryption services in the sake of protecting children, because then they can see.
Yeah. But it's the Holly thing that he was on.
Yeah, right.
Acting like you're all good and mighty. Oh, because all these child predators use these encrypted services, we need to remove it.
Why don't you talk about that Josh Hawley thing that you kind of subtly mentioned?
Basically, I mean, Mitchell had actually mentioned this in the first place. So basically, this bill that they've tried to pass, I don't think it did. Not that I know of, at least. Yeah. Basically, what it every bill these days disguises 50 other things behind one big thing. So
exactly.
They put this bill as a title that said, we're trying to stop child pornography by taking away and basically being able to delve more into your privacy.
Right.
So
because advertised.
Yep.
We're going to work on trying to stop child pornography.
That
sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us, anyone would be behind.
I'm all for it.
Yep. Of course.
So that was the advertising behind it, the marketing.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, cool. But then you look behind the curtain, it's like, oh, they have access to this, they have access to this, they have access to this, and there's about another 50 things that could take away our privacy even more than it already is. And a guy that's a Republican here in Missouri was on and supporting that bill.
And really has been on a lot of good things.
Yeah,
he's done a lot of good things.
So either he was fooled or he knew, and that's what's even more disappointing. Because well, first of all, even if he was fooled, he should be looking deeper into the bill.
100%.
That's on him, in my opinion, in that case. So, but that's the problem. A lot of the times, we had the Patriot Act come out in 2002, 2001,
well, it was right after 9/11.
9/11.
You know the federal. What's the specific name? Federal Information Security something. Some original
the FISA.
Some original bill came out in 1978. That was
to start spying on us, essentially.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Honestly, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew about the
either.
Patriot Act.
It started a long time ago before the Patriot.
Here's the
Patriot Act is a huge. Patriot Act.
Yeah.
No,
it began before that.
It's just like a lot of. I mean, that's why the government's so big nowadays. If you just one step at a time, 1 inch. 1 inch, 1 inch, and that's why ads
give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah, that's why ads are normalized today, because it's been going on since 1980. It's been that's what a person who that's 50 years. Yeah, 50 years. Right
42 years.
Yeah. That's the thing, guys. Is that a lot of this stuff. Whenever you bring up any privacy or technological stuff when it comes to government, most people are like, I'm out. They don't listen to it.
Right.
So that's why, again,
it's not real.
Yeah, that's the problem. So that's why we especially were like, okay, Mitchell's in town. We could talk about something important, and those of you listening, this is something you should delve into. It sounds like all crazy at first. You're like, how do I go against that? And the thing is, we're telling you about this stuff so you're aware of it, and then you also continue to be diligent yourself as well. So don't just think of this as like, oh, this is for the tech guys. And push it away. That's not the case at all.
The language might be for the tech guys. Like Mitch is going to be able to speak a different language as far as that goes than what Gabel and I will, or Jacob. I guess there's two Gabels.
Yeah, true.
But Mitch Gabel. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's still for everybody, regardless of if you can understand the language. It's just like us. If we're talking fitness stuff, you and I can speak that language thoroughly. We're going to understand everything.
Exactly.
Other people won't.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. Just because you might not understand the language right off the bat, you still need to find a way to dive in and figure out a way to understand it for yourself.
It's important for you to care about this stuff.
Yes.
Is what we're basically saying here. This is something that it's, I mean, Mitch got me on Signal a while ago. So that's one thing I actually wanted to ask you, Mitchell, is that, so practical advice for those listening.
Yeah.
What kind of services should they be using? What little tips can they use to kind of limit this stuff, their privacy invasions, that kind of stuff?
I mean, it's a couple of good steps at a time, and I'm sure you guys have I have a couple of good websites that people can use. And a good way to determine what you want to do or how you want to approach your own technological privacy, your own technological side of your life, because I'm sure most people listening are younger, so we're pretty all delved into technology. I'm sure it's used by a lot of military guys, but operational security. So you determine what you have to decide between convenience and security, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more secure something is, unfortunately, the less convenient it is.
Sure.
Right? With Signal, it's very secure. It's end-to-end encrypted, whatever algorithm they use.
What is Signal? I know what it is, but why don't you guys explain it very briefly?
So Signal is a open source. So open source means the code that supports that software, that application, is free for anyone to use.
Yep.
You can go on to GitHub, which is a website that basically supports. It's a massive database of code. And you can go on and look at the source code of Signal, the code that built Signal, and you can take it for your own and see how it works, which is why a lot of people champion open source, because the more eyes you have on something, the more transparent it is. You actually understand what it's doing. So if Signal will say a Chinese-made application and every text we are sending is going straight to China, people would see that because it's open source. So Signal is essentially, it's basically iMessage. It's a separate app where I think they have an Android version too. So it's iOS, Android. You can get it on your Mac OS device. You can get it on a Windows device. But it's a messenger. You send a text message and it will be delivered to that person. It's just like iMessage. It's just the way it sends messages is different. It encrypts it as it sends. And that's why it might not necessarily be as quick as iMessage, because it's doing more stuff in the background to secure that.
Right.
You can do voice calls over it. You can do FaceTimes over it. Not FaceTime, but you can do video calls over it. And those might not be as reliable, but it's still encrypted on that backend.
Right.
So that's where operational security comes in. You have to decide what is it worth it to you. To me, it's very worth it. I do a lot of stuff that's not very convenient, but it increases security exponentially. I don't have social media, really. If I do get a social media account, it's not associated to me by my real name. It's not associated to me by a known email of mine. It's not associated by my known location. It's not associated by any of that. You just have to decide what makes sense to you. And even doing a little, running a VPN, a virtualized private network every once in a while, which masks your location, right? Making sure to, whenever Apple, if you get a new iPhone and it says, do you want to share analytics with Apple? Say no. You don't need to share that data.
Right.
We'll use it to improve our service.
Sure you will.
Okay, maybe,
will.
Maybe they will, but who are you to put trust in that company when it's not transparent? You don't know what they're doing. They could be doing a good thing.
Yep.
And that's why terms and conditions are 1,000 pages long.
That's one thing we need.
That's why bills are 1,000 pages.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. Child pornography, psych, we're spying on you. Patriot Act, we're going to spy on terrorists. No, you're not. You're going to spy on
every
citizens.
single American citizen.
And that's the thing. Even in high school, and I bet you were the same way, Wurtz. I thought the Patriot Act was a good thing. Because I didn't know better.
Well,
you assumed it was like, it's for our own good because terrorists.
Right.
But not even
and
close.
that's what we're saying. And this is what Gabel and I have been saying too, guys, for months. These candidates that are coming up in November, that are up for election, like, you have to just not look at, okay, Josh Hawley, he's a Republican, he's a good guy, he's on my side, I'm going to vote for him. No, you need to look into everything that these people support and have voted for and all that kind of stuff, so you truly understand who you're voting for. Just like these bills and all this stuff, you've got to read it and fully understand what they're saying. Just like Roe v. Wade, with all this happening, abortions are illegal everywhere. No, all that happened is up to the states now.
It just means
government
should not be involved.
Exactly.
In it.
Yeah, which I don't think it should be the states. Mitchell and I talked about that too.
It shouldn't
be at the states. It's still the government being involved in it.
Exactly.
It should be a privatized thing.
Yes.
A lot of things with that. NSA should not have their hands in our business. It's your business. Well, what do I have to hide? what do you have to show? Why
Right.
why do they need to show that?
Oh, I don't
Why-
do anything sketchy. Well, it doesn't matter.
What?
Neither do I. But
Yeah.
like,
You know,
I don't need you watching my stuff.
You know what's funny is they say that they're not doing anything sketchy, but they don't understand like what if their phone's set up and they get filmed having sex? So you're just having like some NSA
Yeah.
agents watching you have sex.
Right.
Oh, that's
Like, you don't even think about that. So like,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't do anything sketchy. It's like, okay, they're watching you literally have sexual intercourse on
Right.
a screen.
Right.
So you're okay with that?
Right.
But you could base it at that small of a level.
And this plays into everything. Like I'll go back to the abortion thing. Like I'm not for abortion, but I'm also not for the government telling people what they can and can't do with their body. Just like the vaccine. Like if you want to take it, great, go ahead.
Yep.
I'm not going to, but the government cannot tell me that I have to. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So in a way, we can be pro-life and pro-choice in the same sense, almost in a way.
That's why
You know?
that's why it's so funny though, because all it is just somebody picking a stupid anthill, like a really short anthill, instead of actually like you know a big one to stand on top of that's actually important.
Like this.
You know, like Governor Overreach. Stand on top of that hill. Stop standing on top of this little anthill down here called Roe v. Wade or something like that,
exactly.
and thinking that you're in a moral high ground because of that. But one way or another, you're not. And that's the thing is like, all it does is just distract us from stuff like this. While more of our data gets used, more of our stuff gets watched, more of our rights get taken away.
Yeah.
And instead, it's like, oh, the federal government has no hand in abortion anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, like this, and then mass shootings. Oh,
my
like
gosh.
this.
Yep.
And it's like, and then everything behind the mass shootings, sketchy, all that stuff. And then you look into all that. It's just all it is just this easy distraction. They pull us away. So I kind of wanted to lead to Mitchell, because you mentioned Amazon, Google, all those companies, how, you know, they might not use your data for malicious activity.
Yeah, we don't know.
Now,
we have no clue.
What is the danger if it gets into the wrong hands and ends up being used for malicious activity?
Yeah.
That's what people don't consider. So talk about that.
Well, it was actually fairly current. I'm glad you brought that up. The state of California, they actually had a data breach. Their website, I don't even remember the details. Their website was misconfigured or something like that, where it exposed the data of a whole bunch of conceal and carry permit.
There we go. I saw this.
Exposed.
This. Yeah.
I saw people. It might have been even deeper. It might have exposed people who wanted to get a gun, which would have been a ridiculous amount of California.
So it definitely exposed all concealed carry holders in California for like a good 30 minutes on the website, and then they deleted it. But it doesn't matter; it's already out there. So this was on like the state of California.
Like
website.
California.gov.
Like literally
or
the government of
whatever.
It was so
okay.
all the concealed and carry holders were listed. Which, by the way, again, we talk about a gun registry. This is why we don't have a gun registry, and why we don't talk about like how you should be able to like track different things like that. Because then they have these right here, and then all of a sudden they can send the right cops to your door. And be like, give me your guns.
Right.
So that's the thing. That's the problem with like this registry type stuff, and that's the problem with states like California and New York, who now can check your social media history. So there's more malicious stuff.
Yeah.
They get access to your data. All of a sudden, they're checking your social media history, and if they post one thing they don't like, you can't buy a handgun or you can't buy an AR-15.
They will deem you like mentally unstable.
There you
something.
go. So that's another problem. That's another. They try to list you as They're like, let's put in laws to protect against the mentally unstable getting firearms. Who determines that?
Yeah, right.
Who determines? Because technically, I have ADHD. So do I get determined as mentally unstable?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, I'm not.
Right.
So that's the problem. Is like all these people. That's why Wurtz and I talk about this whole utopian thing. Mm-hmm. It's cool, like the data idea of like getting the right stuff put in your face, or like being able to find like people who've committed a felony or mentally unstable who like don't let them have access to guns. In a utopian world, that's cool.
Right.
But again, we're not in a utopian world. There's evil in this world. So like, take the naivety out of your life by assuming that there's always going to be evil in this world.
Right.
That's why we talk about the stuff we do.
Yeah.
And we say do not give these people power, because it ends up becoming worse than what this emotional. There's like 8 people dead or whatever in a mass shooting or whatever.
Right.
And it ends up being worse than that, because again, we talk too. Then we ignore the fact that guns save, according to the FBI, between 300,000 to 2 million lives a year.
Right.
Which is, and then they kill in mass shootings like what, under 1,000.
Yeah.
So
and it's 1,000 lives that don't need to be taken.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I don't want you guys to hear him as like, oh no, it's a good
it's
thing.
Tragic.
Like,
yeah,
it's not what he's saying here.
If they want to twist it that way, they can.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they're
right.
going to one way or another.
Right.
Like just because they'll pick the clips and whatever. But
right.
That's what we're saying.
What does
that's
this
why I
all
wanna bring
stem
it up.
back to?
Yeah.
Overreach, meaning power.
Yeah.
You want power, and because of that, the more independent you are, the less you can be controlled.
Yeah, exactly.
So the more data you put out there, the more information you give this service, the more power you're giving over this person.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You're feeding your Google Home, your Amazon Alexa, whatever, everything you
Yeah,
want.
definitely pull that up.
Yeah, everything you want. You're talking. I mean, even if the mic's off, don't be stupid. I turned the mic off. It doesn't hear me.
If it's
Yes.
plugged in,
Come
bro,
on.
it's hearing you.
Yes.
Come on.
So that leads us perfectly into this article I have pulled up from AP News. And actually, like, we can put this in the description of the
Yep.
Definitely, we will.
of the
Yeah.
podcast so that you guys can go to this link.
If we can get access to the Lava Bit one too, let's do that.
Yes.
as well.
We'll get
yeah.
some.
Yes. So this was from June 23rd of this year, so about 2 weeks ago, but it's from AP News, and the headline is Amazon's Alexa could soon mimic voice of dead relatives. Okay, again, sounds kind of cool. Like, oh, that's sweet. We could hear
I miss Grandma.
we can hear Grandma's voice, and that's actually the example
Dude,
they use.
honestly, like I heard it for the first time, I didn't think it was cute at all. I was like,
No,
that's creepy.
It's
as shit.
creepy. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking too. Yeah. So essentially, what can happen is from just a couple minute recording of a voice, you would be able to say, Alexa, read The Wizard of Oz. Or I'm sorry, Alexa, can Grandma finish reading me The Wizard of Oz? This is the example that the article uses, or I'm sorry, that Amazon used when they released this new feature. And it says from just a few minute recording, and it used to take like hours of recording to be able to mimic a voice from AI, but this is a few minute recording to where it can then mimic a voice of someone that's not there, someone that is not there. I just from like in this example, this is a young child is what it quotes it as. Like you're psychologically screwing with that child.
Oh yeah.
Making them think that grandma's still here. I'm sorry, but people die.
Yep.
That's a part of life. Like this is not the point of why we're talking about this, but this is
sin and evil are in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and just the circle of life. People die.
Yep.
Grandma's gone. I'm sorry, but grandma's gone. Everyone's grandma's gonna die one day. Everyone's mom and dad. We're gonna be dead. Like let's not create false realities to try and say
That's the end goal.
that they're not. Yeah,
That's the end
exactly.
goal with the
False
metaverse.
reality.
That's
Yeah.
the end goal with the
Metaverse, virtual reality, all that kind of
The
stuff.
end goal is that the elite, they want to be immortal.
Is
that's
Wall-E.
what they
The
want.
end
Yeah.
goal.
That's the
The
end.
end goal is the movie Ready Player One,
Or that.
Yeah.
where you're stuffed in a
Yep.
shanty and you put on your VR goggles and you're in this happy-go-lucky world.
Mhm. What is it? You'll own nothing and be happy.
Yep.
Yes. The
And
end
give
goal
them
is that.
drugs and video games. That's That's from the World Economic Forum. That's in Klaus Schwab's book.
Klaus Schwab, The Great Reset.
Yep.
And even that, saying me being so steeped in technology, the less technology I have, the better. Because once you understand how crappy technology is and the shitty things it can do,
Yep.
you want to run as far away as possible. Talk to people in person. Give someone a real hug.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "Oh, I love you" over text messages with 3 heart emojis.
Yep.
Right.
That's the most useless, emotionless, non-human thing you can
Yes.
do. You have no depth. I'm sure we'll be eventually able to do it, but you cannot replicate emotion. You cannot replicate tone. You cannot.
Even when it can, I don't think it will.
No.
I really don't. Like
Just
you,
like
you
this.
see all the dystopian shows and whatnot. Same thing. All of them when technology is
let's,
advanced that far, it's not real. It just isn't.
Right.
Let's talk about that story you showed me with who was it? Tom Cruise.
Oh yes.
Tom Cruise.
Okay. This was on Andy's story.
So this
too.
relates
Yep.
to the Amazon Alexa thing, where you have algorithms, neural networks, AI, if you want to call it. An AI is pretty much a really advanced neural network. A neural network is essentially an algorithm that builds millions, billions of variables into something, and it decides a decision based on these variables. It's essentially how your brain works. Your brain says,
Creepy.
okay, I pick up this, I'm going to drink this. I pick up, my water bottle, I go down this path. Once I pick up my water bottle, drink this water. It says, if you do this, then do that. It's an if link.
Right.
If you do this, do that. If this happens, then do that. And that's how these deep fakes, that's what they are. A deep fake voice, which is what Grandma is doing here, and a deep fake also faces. There's programs, there's open source projects on GitHub where there's complete deep fake generators. It can generate faces, human faces, bodies, etc., that don't exist. They've never existed in this world, ever. You would look at this person's face and you'd say, this person's real. It's not a real person. It is a completely generated person based on millions, billions of people's different face variables. I'm going to take this person's right nose flare. I'm going to take this person's left earlobe, and it builds these faces based on that, and that's how you can do these deep fakes. And it's only going to get better and better until you're going to put on those VR goggles and you won't be able to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah. I just hope they take my mustache for someone, honestly.
Yeah, at least all the mustache. At least some good will come out of this technology.
No, they'll put it on a double of Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
But and think about even too, like Snapchat does this.
Oh yeah.
You know, Instagram
these filters are so
yes.
funny.
Oh, it looked like Tom Cruise. Like that's just.
Do you know
the
what
guy
Snapchat's doing when it pulls those filters? It's taking thousands, if not millions, of variables of every piece of your face. That's how, you know, the dog ears or the dog whatever it is follows you, because it sees where your tongue is. It sees where this pixel of your tongue is based on this in your camera, and it determines that. Well, where's all that data going? It's feeding back to Snapchat to improve this filter, because then it will follow you better. Right. So on and so forth.
And the video we're talking about, guys, is a video of Tom Cruise. Basically, and maybe it's not him at this point in time.
It's
but
not.
At Harvard?
So
it's not Tom Cruise.
So it wasn't him. It was literally the whole video was deep faked, basically.
His
of
voice,
him spinning around what looked like Harvard. At first, I thought the video was real.
Yeah.
Then I read the caption, and I was like, holy shit, they created all this through AI and deep fake technology, basically.
Who made it?
I didn't.
It was Meta. It was Facebook.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's... Yeah, so that's even more concerning because it's Facebook and it's Meta.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook.
Right. What was? Do you know what the account was? And I'm going to post it to my story so people can see this too.
It was a green profile picture.
Okay. Anyway, so I'll post it to my story. Everyone that's listening, you guys can take a look at it. You'll see it. Basically, it was a fake Tom Cruise that looked like he was at Harvard. You watch the video without looking at the caption, you think Tom Cruise is literally talking to you at Harvard in the snow.
I fell for it too.
I fell for it right off the bat, and
absolutely.
I was like, and then I watched it for a second time, and I was like, holy shit. That's not real.
Yeah,
and because you could tell a little
There's
bit of
slight
difference,
things,
little bit different, but it's only a little bit. It fooled us.
You know what that means, right?
So that means on the news.
No, that means the government agencies are 10 to 15 years ahead of that, and they already have the ability to create a completely virtualized environment within that. If you're getting shown that technology now, imagine what's behind the scenes being worked on. That's how that
simulation for military run-throughs. I guarantee you those.
That's how the National Security Agency works. And you were talking about being filmed from your phone camera. That's easily able to be done. So the NSA, they do what they create 0 days. A 0 day in the cybersecurity world is a vulnerability in software or hardware, whatever it may be, that you do one thing and you have full access to everything. It's a 0 day. Everything's zeroed out because you can get in. NSA has developed countless 0 days for iOS, for Android, so they just put this one little package of software on your phone and they have full control of everything. Because it exploits certain vulnerabilities. They find, okay, the Apple iPhone has a vulnerability in this software update. We're going to exploit it. If they download this software update, we're in. And that's how these government agencies work. There's hundreds, thousands, millions, not millions, but a lot of people working full time on only developing these vulnerabilities in order to, it's to combat nation states, but it's used on your own citizens a lot of the time.
So is that fault on Apple? Like, are they purposely putting these discrepancies in the software updates or whatever, or is the NSA just that powerful that they can?
The NSA is that powerful. I mean, anything you build is if it's human built, it's probably going to have an error.
Yeah,
humans, we have errors. That's what makes us human and actually able to have a conscience and live. Every time you hear, everyone has a vulnerability, it's just because there was a bug or something in the software.
Yeah, just something overlooked or whatever.
Now, the question is, if that vulnerability is reported to that company, how do they handle it? Do they fix that? Do they?
Right. So that's where the fault could come on a company.
But
like
again,
Apple,
that would be in a
example.
utopian environment.
Yep.
Well, sure, and like he just said, like humans make errors, and that's okay.
Yep.
Like that's how we learn new things. I mean, to take this into a sports setting, I'm a huge advocate against robot umpires in baseball.
Yep.
Because
same thing as like replays of offsides in hockey. I thought that was stupid.
You know how boring that game will be?
Well, and here's the thing. It's so stupid because they're doing testing in some of the minor leagues right now with these robot umpires.
I didn't even know about this. This is awful.
There's still a home plate umpire behind the plate with an earpiece. They throw the pitch, Then they stand there and they wait in their ear. You know, the pitch could be right down the middle. No one's going to say it's a ball, it's a strike, right down the middle. They wait for the strike, and he goes, strike. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This isn't even my point, though. My point is officials in any sporting event, referees in hockey or football or basketball, umpires in baseball or softball, they're a part of it. They make errors sometimes.
It's a human error, yeah.
They make errors. Now, I'm an advocate in the replay sense if it's blatant stuff. Now,
Yes.
offsides in hockey, when they're offsides and then 25 seconds later they score,
by this much,
it has no effect on the play.
Yeah.
Now, you know, something legitimate where the goalie might be involved, like, okay, let's get on the replay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, there is like a level of where it's good.
Yes.
Because there are certain plays where like the puck goes to a certain location in the net that you can't see.
Yes.
Of course, like that. So there's a point where it stops though, and we don't go too far with technology.
Because
That's a good line.
in hockey, you know, these organizations are going to start to hire someone on the bench to sit there on the blue line and just their sole job is, okay, is this guy offside by half
I bet
an
they
inch?
already have like the equipment.
No, like
managers
literally
doing that
though.
stuff.
Yeah. So I'm a huge advocate against robot umpires because umpires aren't perfect, but that's what makes the game
100%.
beautiful.
100%.
You know, like it just
It also
that's
makes for funny
example.
situations. But
Well, that too, but it's just
Well, that's a good
Human-
discussion to have
yeah.
because you're essentially we're using technology to supplement our faults, but you only want it up to a point. You don't want
it
to
goes
be,
back to the convenience and the security, essentially.
or the
argument there.
productivity.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
Do you want it to be perfect? No, because then every time you're gonna know the answer. You're never gonna know something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's ridiculous, and I think it all culminates back to this government overreach. Not that it affects
Right.
sports
There's a couple
like
main
this,
things,
but
yeah.
That's what really concerns me because, you know, we talked about how all of a sudden, like, you know, it's not malicious at first. It really isn't malicious at first with the Amazon, Google, whatever. The problem is, though, is that a lot of these really smart dudes, like, I mean, a lot of them are just nerds who got bullied in high school or something like that, and then they're doing these, they're like, I gotta make all these cool products. The problem, though, with that, again, and Elon Musk has even mentioned that technology he thinks is going too far and whatnot. But then on the same end, Elon's also...
It's implanted chip.
That's what I'm saying. He's talking about Neuralink.
He's like out of touch.
Tesla. And it's like, dude, you're not understanding that your same products, if they go into the wrong hands, they're going to screw us over.
That's the thing.
So that's my problem. Is like these really smart dudes who are creating all this technology might not have a bad idea in mind, but they're not overlooking the whole picture of how negative this could be.
Right.
I literally told Mitch, I was like, technology went too far in like 1970.
Well, and Gabel, we've talked about this too, in the sense that it's gone too far. Like take Tesla. Take Elon Musk, for example.
Yep.
Starlink. What a great concept that is. You can be out in the middle of the ocean and
it's
have
cool.
your internet.
Cool.
I mean,
It's
your
really
parents. Your parents, for example,
Live
might...
in a rural
Yeah,
area.
exactly.
Yep.
So, what a great concept. My dad has people that work for him in Vermont that are on it.
Rural.
Again, great. If that falls into the wrong hands, horrible. Tesla. At the first example of it, it sounds great. Electric cars. I mean, yeah, that's great. We're gonna help the environment, and it's you're gonna charge your
that's
car.
not even true now too.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's not true. And if that falls into the wrong hands, guess what could happen at any point? Boom, your car gets shut off.
They shut it off. Yeah, and I think Elon talked about that too.
That's already been discussed.
Yeah,
There's been discussions of having strikes against drunk drivers. If your car is because all cars have Wi-Fi connected.
Yeah, right.
Cellular connected now. If we know,
You're at the
again,
bar.
your data is collected.
Mm-hmm. He's been at the bar for 3 hours.
Your phone logged this IP address with
Exactly.
this geolocation at Bill and Joe's bar. Okay,
Sounds like a dope place.
Yeah.
You guys want to go to Bill and Joe's?
Yeah, let's
It
go.
sounds like other place we know.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
anyway, continue. Gotta throw a little humor in.
Logged your IP, logged your time there. Your credit card or your debit card. It looked at looked at your bank account.
Yep.
Oh,
what you're spending.
He bought
right.
6 beers. Oh, let's look.
He shouldn't be driving.
Oh, and now my car, my Tesla has multiple cameras. It has a front-facing dash cam. It has side-facing dash cams, and the self-driving ones have interior-facing dash cams because it says your eyes have to be on the road, otherwise it will take you off the road. The self-driving. Let's look at this camera that's facing inside your car. Do you look drunk? Oh, how's your behavior? Let's turn your car off and send the authorities
So
to your
again, this is a
position.
say.
I was gonna say,
right? It's a cool idea because we stopped drunk driving. Well, what happens if somebody gets a hold of it and is like, I'm going to shut this guy's car down because he pissed me off or something like that.
Yeah.
Or because he said the wrong thing on social media against the government, we're going to shut him down.
Yeah,
Right.
it comes
That's
back.
the thing.
It comes back to the government using it.
Exactly.
And I
you
guess-
have to overlook the whole picture
Yes.
on any issue, but especially with this technological and
Yes,
privacy
yes.
stuff when it comes to it.
And I guess the good thing is right now Elon's keeping it all privatized. But who knows if it stays that way.
That's what I'm saying,
Because,
yeah.
Elon, richest guy in the world, but even they could, issue him to court, a million miles away.
Yep.
Again, Elon's in a different situation than this other
Yeah.
guy that we talked about earlier, but
Mr. PJ could join him.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
right.
But still, the point remains the same. It's not their business.
It's not.
It's
at all.
not their bit. And if I want to go buy a Tesla, if I want to get on Starlink, that's my decision. But
Yep.
you can't tell me what I can and cannot do.
Yep.
It's all the same thing, guys.
Well, even then, it's a zero trust security model. Don't trust that company is gonna be a good company.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Don't
Right.
trust that this government is going to be a good government. Don't trust that your phone is secure. It's a zero.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to be dialed in and you need that security preference, you zero trust everything.
Yeah.
I don't know this.
Yep.
I'm gonna make sure it's good to go.
And that goes for everything, whether it's
Yeah.
vetting candidates, vetting laws, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's just,
You don't trust them until you trust them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, 100%.
It's a simple way to say it.
And don't let anyone tell you what to trust and what not to trust. Even us guys, like
Use your
go
brain.
go
Critically
do
think.
your own research. That's why we're going to attach these links. One, so that we have our citation here, but two,
Yep.
so you can go and look. We're going to make it easy. You just have to click on it.
Yep.
So it's all the same point. Government overreach has got to stop.
Yeah, and again, it's what's crazy is that all of this has been proven in history before.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big factor I think a lot of people overlook. So we talk about the gun conversation and whatnot. The reason we're such big advocates of the Second Amendment is because of history.
Mm-hmm.
Because any population that's been unarmed has then subsequently been able to be taken over by a tyrannical government.
You know what makes
Every single time.
the Second Amendment different is it's not a technological anything. It's a physical
Yep.
protection
Yep.
that won't change. A
What are they going to do about it?
a
That's
person,
why they're so scared of it.
A person
Yeah.
behind a phone screen will still have warm blood just like everyone else.
Yep.
It is a physical protection that's why it wants to be removed, because once you're completely in a virtualized environment, what are you going to do? Who are you going to defend against if
Yeah.
Yep.
if the chip in your brain can
Yes.
immediately get shut off?
Yep.
What does it matter if you get guns? You can approach us, and as soon as you get within 30 feet of this
Yep.
person,
Boom, your chip shut off.
Yeah, you
You're
blow up your
asleep.
head or whatever.
Yeah.
And let's chat about why this is so important to our generation as a generation and the generation right now that's 50 and older, etc. as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why this is so important is because do you really want your grandkids and your kids and your great grandkids, etc. on down the line to live in a world where it's basically not real? Do we really want
Right,
that?
right.
We've already
you know,
seen this.
Everybody's like, "Oh, my legacy's not that big of a deal. I'm just here for myself." It's like, okay, prick. Don't have kids for one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's my first problem. Don't have kids. If you're not
Right.
if you are not concerned about legacy or actually the betterment of this world, don't have kids.
Yeah.
For that matter, go on a sex strike because that's what everybody else wants to do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But so that's the thing. So why is this important? Because you should be caring about your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, and your legacy after that, and what world they live in.
Right.
If you're a good human being.
Yes.
If you're not on the evil side of things, you should be caring about what happens after we are gone.
100%.
That's why we're doing this. That's why we talk about this stuff, because of how important it is.
Well, you're talking about the generational issues. You have, it's kind of made fun of, but you have iPad kids.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
it's
we know
hilarious.
plenty of them.
They're
Yeah.
always on their iPad. Okay, yeah, it's funny, but they don't
Yeah,
know how to
We
talk.
joke
to,
about it. It's
So-
like,
They
dude,
don't know how to talk to their own parents because
Yes.
all they see is their iPad screen
Yep.
12 hours a day.
Right.
Yep.
And so this is
Yeah.
crazy. Literally, this happened yesterday. I'm at work training this kid who I also is on my team that I coach. This is a 12-year-old kid, and he has a big issue, and Gable, you'll understand this too, with rounded shoulders. Okay?
Yep.
His posture is not good. And my boss, I didn't think much of it. I knew that he had it, so I was trying to help him. You know, we got to get into this
Yep,
kind
proud
of a
chest,
better,
etc., yeah.
better posture in general and creating flexibility in our upper body. However, my boss comes over and he goes, "You know why he's got that? This kid's dad was here, I was here, my boss and the kid we were all standing." And he goes, "You know why you have that, right?" And he goes, literally makes this motion. I know the people just listening can't see this, holding a phone, and he's crouched and hunched over.
Yeah,
whether
those
it's a
listening
controller,
know what we're talking about. Yeah.
a controller, a phone, or whatever. And it's like, Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first time I had physically seen that, and you know, I'm someone, I do enjoy playing video games, and I still do to this day. However, I'm not sitting there like this.
Don't compare.
Because I also had a dad just like your guys's who has always been involved in the technological worlds, and he's the president.
My parents limited our technology.
Yes,
consistently. Yeah,
and my dad was always like, showing me the correct posture, even when you're sitting there playing video games.
Yep.
You don't think of it as a kid like, Dad, shut up, let me play. Like, no, he's trying to protect me there, and it was crazy to see that. So that's what we're talking about, guys. Is this next generation that's behind us, or I guess would kind of be 2 generations behind us, maybe. Whatever.
10 years, whatever.
Physically on their bodies have problems because of how much they're hunched over on their phones, on their controllers, on their iPads, on whatever.
Their eyes.
Yep.
And their eyes are just getting scorched.
Blue light
Yes. If I'm on my phone or playing games at night, I've got blue light glasses on.
Yep. I actually turned down the blue light on my phone.
Yeah.
Go into settings, you can do that with the brightness setting, guys. You can turn down to more red light on your phone. Yeah. That's a very practical tip.
It's just little things like that, guys. But
I actually wanted to. So, Mitchell, we mentioned some apps here that we can kind of. They're not as convenient, but they're safe. So, Signal. I've heard of Threema. Is that a good one? Do you know anything about that one? Threema is another encrypted messenger. And what else?
DuckDuckGo would be a good one.
That's a search browser.
Mention those two along with the apps.
The way search browsers work is you have you have Google, which is a search engine that queries millions, billions of hits, indexes within a database, and it brings you what it thinks are the most relevant.
What it wants you to see.
Yeah, the most relevant links are. DuckDuckGo works a little bit different, where it pretty much indexes similar databases, but it just throws at you pretty much whatever it hits first. So you'll usually get a little bit more unfiltered, unbiased results from DuckDuckGo.
And something I've noticed, like literally I used DuckDuckGo today to search articles for today's episode, guys. It's also not always going to give you chronological order.
Yep.
Some of my top results were from 2020.
Yep.
And I purposely didn't use those because it wasn't, like I wanted the most current I could get. But that's the convenience thing. You might have to scroll a little bit more and not click on the first one you see on Google. So take a couple extra seconds to scroll down and find, July 7th, 2022. Yeah, this is probably a better article to use, for example.
So you have DuckDuckGo using that to get a little bit more unbiased. Use a VPN when you can, a virtualized private network. So if you're on the go and you're in a coffee shop doing whatever you're doing.
A lot of companies actually advertise for them too. It's easy to find VPNs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of companies, like Barstool Sports, advertises for them all the time.
So there's a lot of good companies, but you have to, again, research and trust that company. One well-known is based out of the EU. It's called Proton VPN. They actually were in the news a little bit ago. They don't collect any metadata, any logs, meaning they don't collect, in general, any IP about their users who use their service.
That's really good.
They don't collect your IP. They don't collect anything. They don't collect how many sites, what sites you visited, et cetera, et cetera. They're in the news because the French government forced them to have a warrant to find this guy, and then they had to start tracking his logs. But Proton, they publicly declared that the French government forced them to do this. So if this guy saw it, he's like, well, cool. I know the French government's on me. So Proton, that's a good company. They are like, they publicly disclosed, the French government has forced us to start tracking this dude's name, and this is your IP.
So awesome.
France has no guns.
Sorry.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was a weird cough you just had, dude. COVID? Is that COVID?
It was COVID.
Like that.
I finally got my backs today. Yeah.
Whoa!
Absolutely not.
And with that, that's going to
be... so there's a lot of good services. Use a VPN. Use better search browsers. Use more encrypted messengers. Don't use iMessage if you're talking about sensitive stuff. Cover your cameras. Cover your laptop webcam when not in use. You can buy stuff.
Just put it down. Like honestly, you can put it like face down too. Yeah, that's a good option.
That's what I'm always doing.
If you're watching the hanky pank in bed or something like that, cover up your camera.
Honestly,
Well, no,
honestly, yeah.
That has happened where people have gotten videos of, and governments have blackmailed people.
Dave Portnoy, they tried to, but he just didn't care.
Yes.
Right.
So that is a real thing. Again, going back to the operational security, decide what matters to you, and do that. So That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
Try and hide your data as much as possible. Don't allow Amazon and Google, Alexa.
Right. Guys, just take this all serious. Again, just kind of recapping real quick. Just take it serious. Understand what is happening behind the scenes to every single one of us. We're all in the same boat. And this is what we've been trying to preach is it's not right, left. It's not Republican, Democrat. It's not conservative, liberal. Like it's Americans and it's just us as citizens against these people that want power, control, and money. But even the money factor isn't even the biggest thing. No. It's the power and control. Yep. That's what they get off on.
That's worth a lot more.
Exactly.
Power and control are worth a lot more. And I don't think people understand how much they crave that type of stuff too.
So do your own research. Understand what products you're using, what software, what hardware you're using, all that kind of stuff, guys. And reach out to us. And if we don't know the answer, because likely we won't, we're going to go to this guy.
Yeah, guess what? We have
or
resources.
Our dads, for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, like, we have sources around us that we go to for this stuff, guys. I urge you to find that for you as well.
Cool.
Gable, I believe you have a Q&A question for us and our guests.
I do.
Yeah?
So, at first I was going to go, it's vacation question. So I was going to go kind of basic, but I was like, let me spice it up a little bit. So, would you rather go on a trip, on a active hiking trip, through mountains, through canyons, that type of stuff, or would you rather have a chill, grab a Mai Tai, sit at the ocean, sit at the lake, even maybe have a beer, something like that? Would you rather do that or the active trips?
Go ahead, Mitch.
Active, 100%.
Yeah.
Comes back to that beach versus mountain debate. Mountain every time.
Every time.
Mountains
every time. Yeah.
It's tough to beat being in the water, like actually out on a boat,
the
on
lakes,
the lake,
lakes,
or the ocean.
We have a soft place in our heart for that too. Yeah.
However, like I've been able to be out west, Grand Canyon, all that kind of stuff. You can't beat it. It's unreal.
The physical world is pretty cool.
Yeah,
we might have just talked about that.
Yeah,
we just had an episode.
Well, and I mean, it's a perfect example. You can't replicate that. You can you can look at all the pictures on Instagram and Twitter. It's like, man, that ocean picture is beautiful.
You can't touch
snow caps.
It's not even close.
You can't touch grass through your screen.
You will not. You cannot get the same feeling as seeing those things, whether it is the ocean or the mountains. Either one, because either one's going to take your breath.
Yep.
I would also take the active trip because that's unbelievable, but you cannot replicate that. So that's what we're talking about. Virtual reality is just that. Virtual reality. It's not reality.
Be here.
Yeah.
Be in person.
Exactly.
That's what we want.
I mean, dude, we've talked about this, but how long have walks in my neighborhood been so important to me?
Yeah.
That because you can't replicate that. Get out of your phone, get out of your laptop, all that stuff. Go out for a walk. Go
smell some fresh air. Holy shit.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Literally get sunshine. Like that natural vitamin D.
Changes.
You need it.
Yeah.
Like this goes